And we're live. Here we are. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in this world. I hope you're doing well. I am your Griot Sensei Alba, and welcome to our channel. I say our, yours and mine, channel Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Alba. And, what is a griot? A griot tells you a story, it gives you perspective, and then you can make up your own mind. Thank you, bud. Yep. And so, title of today's show, and I urge you, first off, don't believe a word I say. I'm just a storyteller. You have to make up your own mind, right? In today's show, both of them, I'm going to do one from my luxurious office here at the Rich People Breakfast Spot. I just had an amazing big breakfast for $11. How can you beat that? I had a big, beautiful croissant, fluffy baked croissant here, and eggs, three fluffy eggs and cheese, 2 cheeses, bacon, French fries, and a big plate of berries, strawberries and blackberries and blueberries that they kind of put in a frying pan for me and kind of cook up just enough so I can eat them without any teeth, in a big bowl of freshly whipped cream. With tax, under $12, right? You went to Hardee's and got one of their sandwiches and some fries and a coffee and a cinnamon bun, that'd probably be $12, and then with tax, probably $15. So people don't realize that you don't have to suffer, right? That's first of all, and the powers should be that are pushing, the powers that shouldn't be, that run the game by owning the politicians. We just looking at what's going on at the DNC, people want change. So the closest thing to change in the DNC is, Bernie. And really, he's not that, he's like kind of FDR without the money. And that's all he wants, just to give, and what was the biggest thing that FDR did? When people said, "Oh, you saved America," he said, "No, I saved capitalism," right? Because with the Depression, because the capitalists were so greedy, so thought they could do whatever the heck they want, just like, we're being told, shown right in front of us with the carrot top pinhead, that, the rules don't matter anymore. As he said, I can go to Fifth Avenue and shoot everybody and not even get arrested. And these were, the pinhead, everything he says is scripted. He's not, a lot of people in the poverty-stricken area that I live in go, I like our president because he's real. He's saying it like it is. Well, not really. When you look who's in his cabinet, everybody is from Wall Street. Everyone's from all of the, those corporate banks that drove our whole economy into a ditch, and that, basically didn't blackmail. But what's the other one when you kind of strong arm, So the Federal Reserve, which is a privately owned, stock-held corporation, has nothing to do with the government. Federal Reserve has, Federal Express has as much to do. A0. So how are we doing? That's the question. And so the topic today, the GDP, what is it? What it is a mark of the rich getting richer, right? Gross domestic, and it's really gross domestic product. Ooh. Hey Slim, I'm the Bob. I'm here on the live chat. I'll call you later. What was that? I didn't get that. Okay. You went on the bottom. Okay. And I'll just think people off. Um, so, where was I? Oh, gross domestic product, right? So that's the measure of the stuff we produce, and back, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, GDP, with the rise of GDP, basically the average person was doing better. But today, between 1980 and today, GDP has gone through the roof, right? And only that 1% has made any money out of it. And the average person, 1 in 4 people can't afford an emergency of $400, right? They get sick, the car breaks down, etc. Can't pay for it, And 1 in 3 is living paycheck to paycheck. And this is, we have the best economy, everyone's working, really, yeah, they're working at $7 an hour, and it's costing $15 an hour. Forget that. What is needed is about $30 an hour. 15 would be a way better than 7. And every state, every city that has risen, in their own little municipality, risen the average, the pay. It wasn't the end of their economy. Actually, their economy. I know I haven't got around to it yet. I will. So, just a minute. Hey. Scooby-Doo. Okay. Here you go, sweets. Mm-hmm. And so GDP, so it's gross domestic product, we had to grow, like China's like growing by 10%. Well, look what it did. Yes, it uplifted a good percentage of their population from eating dirt to eating fast food, from living in their traditional home into living in a styrofoam box, so and turning their air and water into something you cannot breathe or drink. Thank you. And part of this thing going on in China with the virus is that people, or their immune systems have been so compromised that they are not living. They're the walking dead. So that's part of the problem with GDP. You look at cancer rate, heart disease, lung disease in the United States, and they started taking real statistics after the Civil War. So that from the 1880s on. So in the 1880s, 1 in 10,000 people got cancer. Now it's everybody. If you live long enough, you're going to have cancer. Everyone has some kind of cancer: skin cancer, testicle cancer, some kind of cancer. And it's all about exposure. You look at Senator, what's his name, the war hero. He died of brain cancer because they said that he had his cell phone glued to his ear. Me, not so much. I keep it over here. Usually I have to get a new set of earbuds because mine burned out. But that's kind of where we are. Anton, good to see you, buddy. So we have Zero, we have Yo Ma, and Anton. Good to see y'all. So we're talking about GDP. And when I was at the United Nations, I helped start a NGO called Alternative Technology. And part of that was this is where I came up with and I've been working on it, the alternative aesthetic, right? We were not placed on this earth to be, merchants, Masonic merchants. No, because what we end up is being merchants of death, right? So you look at all the manufacturing is based on oil through plastic, through steel, and those are unbelievably toxic to the environment. And forget about global warming. That's not the problem. It's what the industrial GDP is doing to our environment, poisoning the water, poisoning the air, poisoning the ground, so nothing can grow. Um, our food is poisoned. The products you buy a frying pan has Teflon. You'll end up with more Teflon in you. They give me a lot of medicines to take. And my body only absorbs about 0.4% of that pill, that 20 milligram pill I take. That's 0.4. The rest I piss out. So it goes into the toilet, which goes into the septic system, which goes into the stream, which goes into the lake, that goes into the fish that people eat. And you look at, man, I would not eat anything coming out of the ocean in the Pacific between the islands of garbage and Fukushima, not so good. And, you know, I went on the West Coast a couple of times in the 60s and 70s. And I went with a friend of mine, and she and I traveled from, the Baja all the way up to Alaska. So we went along the coast of Canada, and in those days, in the 60s, you could drive there, and you just kind of waved at the guy, at the border. They were not very tough. You didn't need a passport or any, where you going? Oh, I'm a tourist. Good, have a good time. So that whole coast of the west coast of Canada and into Alaska was the most amazing, diverse biological entity. And well, Ma, if you were here and you had some good boo, I'd do it. But when you live on $79 a month, and by the way, if you guys want to send anything to my PayPal at the dude awake 42 at Gmail, that would be nice. But I don't really go on about it like lots of other people do. I don't have a whole little section of swag that you can buy, coffee cups and hats. No, I don't do that. So, but Ma, if you live in America, in the springtime, come and visit. Bring some swag. So, but Ma, I don't really need. I mean, the thing is, I like to. If I'm gonna smoke any swag, I like to do it with people because I love the contact collective buzz. Because to get in that state of consciousness that anything organic can do for you, I can do it with meditation. And tonight we're going to do a guided meditation because as long as the weather holds to the point where my bandwidth is good enough. Because I would look at last night, and you can hear me, but the image was, I look like a, 19th century impressionist painting, which I kind of am. So, but the GDP. So you look at countries like Denmark and Finland and Sweden and Norway, and they have the highest, people are the happiest. They're not the richest, but they're happiest because, they pay, when I lived in Sweden, you buy a bottle of wine, it's cheap, $40 for a cheap bottle of wine because, 90% of it was tax. And that tax, though, went to my health care and to make sure that things were clean and good. And their legal system is made. They got nobody in jail. I mean, guys who are like, bad dudes, they take them out into the middle of the forest, 100 miles from anybody, and put them in a nice little cabin. And they have shrinks and social workers. And there are no gates. There are no, you want to walk out through the tundra for the next 150 miles. Fine, you'll freeze to that, no problem. But you stay here. You have your own little nice cabin, and it's warm. You get good meals. You get to talk. You get, and they have the guys and the girls in the same jail, so they can have, nice human time, and they don't, they're not like our jails. And so we live in a prison planet, right? We live in a planet that the powers that shouldn't be say our economy has to be based on scarcity. So there are people that 1/10 of 1%, people like Bill Gates, his wealth is equal to 40% of all the wealth. I mean, his wealth is equal to all the wealth of 40% of the human race, meaning 40% of the 7, 8 billion people who live here. He's got more money than that. Right? What's his name? Mr. Amazon. He makes something in the order of 20 to 70 million dollars a minute. What's he do? He's sitting, scratching his butt. Just because he, was the poster child for, you know, sending you boxes through the internet. And boy, I would suggest none of you folks, half of that stuff comes from China, and that virus, you know, stays, you know, communicable, meaning viral, for at least 9 days. And could last 100 days. They haven't done any real testing except for anecdotal. Because nobody wants. I mean, there are a lot of people who are talking and writing about this. If you go to um, the Humanist Report, you go to Truth. What's his name? Um, he's a guy. Max Igor on the Black Crow channel. There's another guy who. I mean, so I have to first off. We've been talking now 16 minutes. I first and foremost want to thank everyone in the cadre because virtually all the interesting stuff I get, you guys send me. Oh, you got to watch this, Sensei Al. So I do. And that's where I get a lot of the things where you should go look at this, right? All of the channels that are on my playlist that you can go to and see, um, and so the information's there. But there was um, the Humanist Report guy. He was very interesting because, and this is where I'm coming from. Hey, I want us to develop an alternative aesthetic, right? And that comes from prayer and meditation and being empathetic and putting yourself in the other guy's shoes. Not like our founding fathers. Not George Washington was the biggest scumbag. He was a slave owner. He stole property from the Indians. What was his job? He was a surveyor. Well, what did he do? He lined. He surveyed billions of acres and said, "That's mine." He fought in the English. He was a major colonel in the English army, right? And he won because he knew how the English want to fight, and then he fought dirty, right? He was the exceptionalist, and all the rest of our founding fathers, except for Ben Franklin, because Franklin didn't really own a lot of stuff. He was comfortable, like me. I own nothing, but I'm comfortable. I can eat in a place like this a couple times a month. So unlike this generation's Ben Franklin, not quite. Not that egotistical. But I liked all our founding fathers. I mean, he had a nightclub. First Jefferson went to Paris to try to get the French to be on our side of the revolution, and the French said, "What a loser!" Right? And they wanted to have nothing to do with it. Then Franklin went over there and started a nightclub called the Hellfire Club, where there was a door for guys and a door for girls. They went in there. There was a locker room. They took all their clothes off. They got fancy masks. They went out into the ballroom, totally naked, had sex and drugs and rock and roll. And Louis thought Benjamin Franklin was like. Plus, he was like the Albert Einstein of their time because he understood, modern physics, not Newtonian physics, and not even Einstein. Franklin was ahead of Einstein by far. He was. What was that key in the kite thing? He was looking at dimensional energies. That's what when a lightning bolt goes boom, you're kind of put in another dimension, right? So how's Dublin, England? I saw some pictures on RT of Dublin, and what they did to O'Connell Street really is upsetting because I loved O'Connell Street. All those oak trees that the Romans and the English had to hang the heroes, they cut them all down. All those big statues of guys on horses of the Irish heroes. They took them down, and they made O'Connell Street look like Brussels. And there's this big, you know, pointy thing at the end of O'Connell Street. It's like, please, unbelievable. So tell me what's the neighborhood that's just out? You come out the main gate of Trinity, and there's like the old city. That's like there's a big circle, and it's like spokes of the Commerce Road and this road, and then it kind of comes over here, and you kind of go towards the river, right? You know, Trinity's up here. You come out to Jamaica, you go around the circle, go that way, and yep, and they got the best pubs on that street. It reminded me when I saw Harry Potter, and they had that sections, little alleys where the interesting people, they had to like go through the force field to go through. Dam Street was all those pubs there, and it didn't matter. Those pubs were like, especially one pub, I forget the name of that Archie went to all the time, and all the really interesting scholars, which, whether they were Trinity or not, and it was just down the street from where James Joyce lived, and go in there, and it was kind of, that's why I like this place, because there were these like almost little carols where you would sit, and you could have private, and there'd always be somebody playing music, and there was always some good kind of stew and good, what's the bread in Ireland? Soda bread, and fresh butter, sweet butter. I mean, I haven't had really good butter since I left Ireland. Even the stuff here they call butter is like pathetic. So, whatever that pub was named, but it was pretty well known as that's where all the writers and scholars and interesting people would hang out, right? And that's when I first had my first glass of Hattie's Irish whiskey. And many of you guys have had, and that was like the gun money for the IRA. They would sell that around the world. It was the best whiskey ever. They didn't sell it in America, or England, or any of the English things. The English things are Canada, Australia, New Zealand. What others are there? Still South Africa. On Fleet Street. Yeah. So that's when I went back to Ireland. The last time I was back there was in '05, and they had already destroyed O'Connell Street, and everybody was money grubbing hungry. I went to all the little towns I used to live in, and went to visit friends who, their parents had a B&B, and I went into this one friend of mine in Slargo, and he was, I got there and he was packing up. I said, where are you going? And he goes, well, my parents died, and I ran the B&B for a little bit, and some Europeans came and offered me 20 million euros for the B&B. And I was like, what? This is in '05. And, 20 million euros in '05 was a lot of friggin' money, because I already bought my place in Spain, and I've already kind of become a Spanish, he's on the coast of near Madrid, and he goes, I'm going to go there. And there's, an asbestos of, Irish folk who've sold out here and have gone there. And, there's this little beautiful mountain kind of town on, it's really a fishing village, but the town is built on a hill. I used to go to the farm and a little place in town, for like 200,000 euros, and I got 20 million. So I'm just going to go there and cash in and enjoy the warmth. So, but they destroyed Ireland. Everybody was grubbing for the money, and that's what GDP does. It makes people grub for the money, So. When you look at other countries that have hit a kind of sustainable, stable kind of economy, they take care of their people, and they're capitalists, but their main thing is to be happy. And Temple Bar, yes, and you just say that Temple Bar, and bingo, the picture of it is in my head. and the smell of the place. That was, our most connected thing. Isn't our eyes or our ears? It's our nose. The last sense to go when you die is. So when I was an EMT, I was in the bus, screaming towards the hospital. The guy who just got smooshed in a car accident, um, to the emergency OR, and we were pretty good. We had a 90-something rate of no matter how squished you are, we got you there within a half an hour. We could make sure you didn't die, and then it was up to the surgery guys. But I did that for 3 years, so I don't know, about 12 people died, and that was my job. My job was to be in the back of the bus and not. I mean, there was another guy who was running the machines and doing all that stuff. Me was like making the connection with the guys, saying, "Hey, stay with us, be here." So what are you feeling? How are you feeling? And they say, "Oh, it hurts." Well, I knew that we'd get him there and he'd be okay. But if he didn't feel anything, ooh, that's when you knew he was slipping away. And when he couldn't see you, but he could hear you, right? And the last sense that would go would be their smell. And they would, Mom, you're baking bread, stuff like that. They didn't see me anymore. They weren't talking to me. They were talking to the people on the other side. Right? And so, and I had experienced that earlier in my life. When I was about 6, 7, and 8, when I lived in Harlem, I saw a couple of people die. And I saw a few people die really horribly. I saw a guy fall in front of a subway at first, and he fell down. He tried to get up, and he grabbed the third rail, and his foot was on the other track, and this 600 volts at a million amps went through his body, and he was like lit up, and then he got hit by the train. So he was smoking, he was on fire, he was screaming like boom. I saw that when I was about 7, 8. Or I went back to my parents. I had a little PTSD going on. I saw another kid when I was probably 10, maybe 9. They were paving our neighborhood. So they kind of scraped the road, and then they put down tar, and then they put little small bluestones, and then they rolled that over, and then they put the asphalt on top. And so we were like on our bikes, and we were doing wheelies and skidding out on the bluestone, right? And there was this one kid who wasn't, really part of our gang, but he was a bully. He was older than we are, and he, instead of hanging out with kids his own age, he would, try and be cool for us, and then, try and intimidate us, and we just laugh at him. That was one of the good lessons of not worrying about the bully or being scared by anything, because this guy, he was big, but you could run away from him really fast. You could like kick him in the knee, and he'd go, "Oh, you could be in the knee." Oh. So anyway, he was riding his his sister's bike with the pink little flares, and he was trying to get out, and he kept falling down and getting the tar all over him. So he had tar all over him, and so he tried to do a wheelie, and he did it, with a big gigantic steamroller moved away from us. And he was trying to do wheelie, and he fell down and got stuck in the tar. And then the guy put it in reverse and came back and rolled over him. And we saw this, and the machine was so loud you couldn't hear the kid scream. But it didn't run over. It first ran over his. He tried to get up, and he kept sliding in the oil, and then the thing ran over his feet, and then his ankles, and then his knees, and it squished him into his bike. And you saw. Couldn't hear him though, and and we just watched and we were like screaming, "Hey!" But and they rolled right over him. The last thing that rolled over, and when they started to roll over his abdomen and his head, it popped like a watermelon, and squeezed it in there, and they couldn't get him out of the road, so they just paved over him. That was when I was about 9 or 10. So I saw and I saw other things. When I was a lineman, I worked with this crew that were just morons. And I tried, to stay as far away from them. All I did was transform them, so I let them do their cowboy thing. And when we did, towers, and they said, "You gotta go up there." I said, "No way am I going up there with you morons." So they had these, work helmets, hard hats, and I had one that looks like something straight out of Star Wars. I'm sure that's where they got it, because it was a hard hat. But it it had like an umbrella made out of fiberglass that came past your shoulder. So if anything happened to you, it wouldn't just glance off your hard hat and break your shoulder. It would like keep. So these morons would throw bolts at me from up in the tower, right? Well, the first time it bounced off that hat, I said, "Okay, I'm going to stay as far away from these guys and just, do my thing, right?" So we did a leg of mine, and I was working on the transformer station. I got my own little pickup truck, so I would get the stuff I needed and leave them and go over there. And once I got really into it, my boss gave me a crew, and they were guys from Mexico City, and they were electrical engineers. They were sharp. But they didn't speak English too well. So I learned Spanish right there and then. But man, we had a big truck with, had all these boxes that had all the material, so we didn't have to drive 80 miles to get the screw. I mean, this truck had everything we needed. Meaning, they knew what we were doing with this transmission station, this distribution. Um, they call it distribution. I'll lose a name for it. But anyway, when you drive down the highway, you see the big lines going to this fenced-in area and have big boxes and stuff goes in it. And I got panels. It's all outdoors field. They call it distribution field. Anyway, we would wire that, and the morons would put up the line because any monkey could climb up there and just pull wire through an insulator. So anyway, one day we were finished, and we were kind of staying at the same motel. And so we would finish, and we would drive to where we'd have to drive by them and then go. And so these morons did their leg. They put it, got to the point where they were going on to the live thing. And they have these big Frankenstein switches that go up to these towers, and that can unplug different elements of the line. And so, the line they were working on wasn't energized, but they were working close to like 900,000 volts. I mean, really high voltage stuff, right? So these morons were, had this rig. It was like, a pulley system where they would pull these big towers up. They'd like kind of put them together on the ground and then they'd pull them up, right? And so that truck's a big chunk of metal. They had these big pads that hydraulically steady the truck. So when they're lifting this thing up, and the thing that's lifting up, it isn't like a bucket, meaning it's not form that's then half of its fiberglass to insulate. No, the whole thing's metal, right? So we're driving up to these morons, and they park right away, so we can't go around them. So we're just fine. We'll be back here 100 yards away from them, so whatever they do will, be a threat to us. So, we were past lunch, we were past work, so these guys brought out a little tequila and a little boo, and we're like, got out our big umbrella, put it there, and got out our little, lounge chairs and sat and smoked a little boo and was drinking a little tequila and eating the last of the chicken from lunch because these guys would make a big dinner, wrap it all up in aluminum and stick it in the engine, right near the manifold of the engine. And, we would leave the motel at about 7 in the morning and they would have this, chicken and potatoes and carrots and rice and and they didn't cook it in the motel. They just wrapped it up in aluminum, stuck it in the manifold. We would drive the 40 miles to where we were working. We would pull up, put the truck there. Engine would be so warm by lunchtime, and we wouldn't eat lunch until 1:30. We would work real sturdy from about 9 a.m. to about 1:30. And then we take off an hour and have lunch. We pull out our umbrellas, like that. We got little folding tables and folding chairs, and we'd have very comfy lunch. We'd have tea, and we'd have chicken or steak or, and they would make great food, and we'd eat nice, and then we'd pack it up, put it in the truck, go back to work, and the sun would have gotten past, be about 2:30, so it wasn't super hot, and then we would work from 2:30 till, about 4, right? And then we would drive back towards the thing, and the morons would either be there or not there. And this time they were there because they wanted to finish up certain parts, so they were actually rushing. So they worked longer than they should have. So they were rushing to get it all together so that they could get back to the motel and go to the bar, right? So we're about 100, 3 football, far enough away that nothing they did would harm us. Not underneath any power lines. We were like over there, and we had gotten our little umbrella out, and we were like, sipping tea and having a good time, and eating the last of lunch, and smoking a little boo, and drinking a little tequila. And these guys have really good tequila, and so. We're sitting there, and so they're bringing this crane device down, right? And there's a guy. So the cable they use to pull these towers up, it's like about that big aircraft cable that can support like the weight of, I don't know, 40 tons easy, more than what that metal crane could do. So anyway, this guy's got the cable between his legs, and he's feeding it onto the drum in the back of the truck, big drum, right? And the guy is like moving this big metal crane device, to a place where he can hold it back into the truck. So this moron moves it over, and these guys drank and smoked, and you know, and so they're a little buzzed, and they're in a rush to get back to the motel to go to the bar, and they kind of, the guy who's running the thing basically runs the tower into the live high voltage 900 volt line, and the guy who's spieling the cable onto the drum, it's like a hot wire through butter from his crotch to the top of his head. The cable goes right up, and he falls to the ground in two different parts. Right? It looked like the red lobster that you see on TV. They show the two parts of the tail. They cut it in like that, and it cauterized him. Like his guts didn't fall in place. It was just on fire and bubbling. And the guy, anybody who was in the truck or touched the truck or was close to the truck, burst into flames. Right, and then the truck burst into flames and then exploded. And we were like 2 football fields away, and we were watching this go down. And once the big explosion happened when the crane hit the high tension lines. But the guy who was at the controls was so he didn't like push through the cables and break them. The thing just stopped and was energized. Right, and we watched all these guys. Everybody in that crew, there were about 12 of them. 9 of them died a horrible death, and the other 4 were 10, 11, 12. The other 3 were, burned beyond recognition, but they were the unlucky ones. They actually survived. So because we worked on the transformer station, we had this Motorola radio telephone that had 2 frequencies, the state trooper band and the power company band. So we called to the power company, because even though we worked for this other company, we were basically doing this with the power company. We said, "Hey, have you noticed? Section 4 is like in a dead short." They go, "Yeah, we can't. Normally a regular transformer has a little fuse on it with pop, but this was the main line for 200,000 people in this section of New Mexico and Texas, and so that thing didn't have a circuit breaker, because they would have to shut down, not only those 200,000 people, but maybe another 250,000 people in the Four Corner area." So I said, and we explained what happened, and I said, you better turn, either this neck of the woods off or that line off somehow, because no one can get close to that thing, because within 50 yards of that truck, and it's like burning and exploding, and pretty much, anybody's dead, they probably don't want to be alive. And then they said, "Okay, we'll figure it out. We'll send some people there." And they said, "Can you guys do anything?" "Nope, not we're at a safe distance and we're staying there." And so we did. You didn't go to those morons' assistants and die ourselves. We just sat there, toasting tequila to them, right? And so, Then we switched over the highway patrol guys, and they actually showed up. They actually sent a helicopter, right? And then very soon after the helicopter landed, um, a couple fire trucks and emergency trucks and a whole bunch of highway patrol guys, and then some military people from Kirkland showed up, and and then the power company showed up, right? And what they did was they had a guy in a metal suit that went down the line and cut the cables to that section, so they didn't have to knock out 500,000 people's worth of electricity. And we just sat there under our umbrellas, and then we made a bunch of really nice coffee. And the cops and the firemen and everybody came over and didn't have the three guys who were alive. They kind of eased into gurneys and put them on the helicopter and flew them out. But everybody else, everybody came over and we drank tequila, smoked boo, and drank really good coffee. And they ate the rest of the chicken and vegetables we had. And we became best of friends with all those people. Right? And we had to stay there until the guys, the suits came and did their investigation. So we put up our tent and put up, things. We gave everybody a chair to sit in, and like I said, everybody, even the cops, we all sat around and told stories and smoked boo. Right? This is 1972. People were a little more relaxed in those days, and so we have seen a lot of death. So when I see things, I put it into context. Right? So this guy, and this was a channel you should go check out, the Humanist Report. And his most recent one was he was going on about all the stuff that's happening. And he was saying, listen, you have to put this stuff into context. And he goes, everything that people are getting up in arms about, whether left, right, center, Bernie supporters, Donnie supporters, whatever, it's all an illusion. It's all a distraction. I keep saying, don't believe a word I say. I don't believe in anything. I only have faith in love's procreation, and that's what it's about. Right? So, this whole thing about Bernie. I mean, Bernie should really be stepping up to the fact that the DNC is last time he should have run against the orange pinhead, but the hidden hand, the powers that shouldn't be. No, they didn't. They wanted the carrot top pinhead as president as a form of distraction to ease in the bringing on the New World. I mean, we've all been in the New World Order since Christopher Columbus. This is the New World, right? So, I met this guy in person. Let's see. Let's go back and see what you guys are talking about before I jump into a new story. Do not have a channel. Zero wouldn't know where to start. Well, Graham, I'm a good example. I don't have a clue, but I got a channel. It's really not that tough. If I can do this, everybody can. If I can podcast, anybody. Now, there's certain limitations that some people do really great shows. Those guys who do Truth Stream Media, they do and Gracefulness. She is amazing, right? And Jimmy Dore, all those guys, they have really good. Me, like I said, I look like a 19th century, impressionist painting. So I just go with the flow. I do a stream of consciousness. Oh, cheers anyway, right? Anthony. What a way to go. I know. Turned into stinky mush, but that's all we are, is stinky bags of water. And the guy in the truck, he was bubbling. He looked like a on fire bag of water. I mean, if you've ever seen, there was a movie that Brad Pitt was in, where he's a sergeant of a platoon of tank guys, and it's they go on Normandy and go into France and have that a brouhaha with the Germans in France going towards Germany. This one scene where they get ambushed and they have all these kids. The Nazis had all these kids, and they would give them anti-tank weapons, and they would put them along the side of the road, and they were totally expendable, right? And so the kids were like, ah, ah, and this one tank goes by and sees a scared kid, and instead of turning his 50 caliber and obliterating all those kids, his tank rolls by, and the tank in front of him and behind him get hit by these kids with his hands. So, boom, right? And the tank that the U.S. Army had, the Germans' tanks were diesel. So if they got hit by fire, the diesel fuel wouldn't, blow up and burn. But the American tanks had, internal combustion engine, ran on gasoline. It had a ton of gasoline, and that motor allowed that light tank, because it had no armament, Nazi, German, a zillion tons of armament, but not the American tanks. They were like made out of Coke cans. So they could go real fast. They were like speedsters, right? So that's what they thought. Oh, we'll speed. Our speed will, but when you're going through mud and through the forest and you're only doing 4 miles an hour, so we lost a lot of guys in those tanks. And when Ford built them, they knew it. They did tests. They shot, your basic light artillery at them, which, like a RPG. And, it was one shot would kill everybody inside. The thing would go in, blow up, ignite the gasoline, and everyone would be dead. Anyway, so there was a scene in that movie where this happens to the tank in front of this guy. And he's watching this happen. Now, his tank hasn't gotten hit. Tank in front of him has gotten hit, tank behind him, so he can't go anywhere. And both are just a Roman candle of flame. And the guys, the hatches open and these guys roll out and they're on fire. It's just drowned in gasoline and they're burning. This is what all the 500,000 people who died of napalm in Japan and Korea and Vietnam. And this was, the guys who did this movie did not spare because they saw them, and these people were and they're screaming and help me. And there's this one scene where this guy is on fire and he comes out and he's screaming. Now he's the only one who's escaped his tank, but he is burning like a Roman candle. And he takes his pistol out and he puts it to his head, and his side of his head blows away on fire. And he kind of, they don't leave it after he blows his brains out. The camera then really goes on him, and he kind of, evaporates. And that's what those guys in the truck did. They were on fire like that, Roman candle on fire in this burning gigantic truck, and their heads exploded, and they were still in the chair, and all of the liquids of their body just bubbled straight out of them, right? And that's what happens every day. So why focus on that, right? And so that's what the truther movement does. It focuses on stuff like that. So how do you change that? You don't do it by complaining about this and that and how terrible the carrot head, pinhead president is and the turnip brain vice president. But he's more like, what vegetable is just whiter than white? Well, he's that. The guy who's attorney general is more the turnip character, and instead of going on about impeachment, because the Democrats, look what they did to Bernie. So Bernie should have run against the carrot head, and he would have won. We would have President Bernie right now, right? And we would have had a Democratic Senate and Congress, and he could have given us single-payer health care, no problem. Now, why did we get this Obamacare? Because Obama let the corporations write the law. That's why it's so bad, And Donnie, Pinhead's right, get rid of it. But we would have had infrastructure. We would have instead of giving, $60 trillion of no interest loans to banks, so they could then lend the money to corporations that could buy back their stock and send the stock market through the universe, not because of any real value. And that's, again, this whole thing of the GDP. that's a scam. Now if you're like, a third world country and your GDP is going up, well, that's good. That is a good measure of your people doing better. But otherwise, not so much. So in highly developed technological societies don't need um, to march up the GDP, right? They don't need that, and China definitely doesn't. China doesn't need to have 6%, 10% GDP. If they had 4%, they'd be fine. We used to have 10 and 6% GDP, but we got to a place where we settled in at 2%. That was fine, right? And we could ease up on it too, because what we do with our GDP is we make stuff. We go to third world countries like the Mideast and Africa and all around the world. We have 900 bases all around the world to protect our ability to steal people's stuff. Their rare earth elements, their coal, their oil, their uridium, their titanium, their gold, their diamonds, and we steal that, and then we make useless pieces of crap, and then we throw it away, and then we create, islands of garbage, toxic garbage, the size of Texas, out in the middle of the Pacific, and all the fish are eating it. You get any fish from the Pacific, it's either full of plastic, full of things like DDT and other oil-based poisons, or radiation. First from the hydrogen and atomic bomb tests in the Alamos, which are still all on the sea base there, causing mutations, and then Fukushima. And that's a never-ending gift, because they just keep pumping that water that they can't get rid of into the ocean. And it goes to America, through the Pacific, radiates everybody. So do we focus on this and do nothing about it except go, oh, isn't this terrible? Isn't this terrible? Isn't this terrible? And this electrical catastrophe that happened is a good example, because everybody there, the police, the military, the power company, basically said, thanks, oh, this coffee is really good. Oh, can I have a little bit of that chicken? And then they would say, boys, you did the smartest thing. Otherwise, you would be like those guys. The fact that you contained the area. Well, we were out in the middle of the desert. It wasn't hard to contain the area. And that we immediately called in the message to the both home bases, meaning the quasi-paramilitary of the state troopers and the army and the power company. And we did that within 5 minutes of that experience. Boom, we were in shock. After we had our second, tequila, we kind of got in, because we had this big truck that we had set up as our little lounge, and then we kind of all got it in the pickup truck and drove as another. We drove around the desert until we found the best spot. There's a little meter on our radio telephone, so when we got the best connect, that's when we made the call. And that was about 20 minutes after, and everything was still like, you could smell it. Smell of burnt flame and ozone, burnt flesh and ozone, and gasoline, and burning rubber, and melting aluminum. And things kept blowing up. In that big truck, there'd be all kinds of cans of spray stuff, and they'd be, and so that's why our truck was far enough away. Our big truck was far enough, like 2 feet away, but we all got on the pickup truck until we got the best signal, and so we were a good mile away. But we were like kind of up on a hill, and we could watch it going on. And so we made the call until when all the powers that be, or should be, came and were investigating and cleaning up. They all patted us on the back for doing a great job of being the first responders and doing the right. You guys did everything right. Gee, thanks. And then my boss, because we were just a subcontractor of a bigger company, he said, Al, I'm going to give you, I'm getting more of these guys from Mexico who are kind of engineer types. They're not just, morons. They're kind of smart, but nobody wants to work with them. You call them all wetbacks, and you seem to get along with them great. So I'm going to put you in charge of getting them and organizing them and being, because we have about 8 of these distribution parks that we have to put together. And you get those crews together, I'll hire enough, and we'll put one crew in each one, and they can all set up their own little campsite and stay there. It'll be a lot more efficient. I'll make more money, and I'll give you a bonus. And that's been me. I've always worked for people where they needed me more than I needed them, right? Anyway, so let's see what you guys. I am subscribed to you, Graham. Okay, so Graham, don't have a channel. Yep. Cheers, anyway. Anthony, what a way to go. Graham joined May. Yep. Zero, yeah, you do. Anarchy 2020. You met this guy in person. I remember you now. Yeah, well, I seem to come across in person a lot of people. I have a good 10 friends that our past we kept, once we became friends and started telling stories, I was there, you were there too. I mean, I had a friend of mine who, went to Woodstock, and I was there until it started and I was in New York, He was in the West Village when I was, he was in all these places. He was in the Air Force. This guy, he was a colonel, and he was in the Navy, he was in the Air Force, he was in Joint Kill Intel, blah blah blah, and he was like hard ass merc / rocket scientist. So, and then we kind of bumped into each other, maybe 15 years ago at a bar. We just were having, just like this kid I saw in the biker bar the other day, right? And he looked down at the dumps. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" If you go to that show, you can see me talking to him. And he was an electrician. We talked electrical work. I talked about this, And basically, so this show is, GDP. What's it good for? It's not good for nothing. What's really important is what Mr. Humanist Report was going on. Because he was going on about all the stuff that the truth community is going on about. He says it's a waste of time. What's important is your relationship with love's co-creation. He said God, but I say love's co-creation. And he said, it's what you do in the little moments with people that's important, So that's kind of what this show's about. So tonight's show, because depending on the bandwidth, whether it's raining or sleeting or snowing, whatever it's doing, I am going to do a guided meditation. I'm going to take you to your Akashic records. I'm going to show you, who and what you are, and the connection of this material world of the GDP, what it's doing to Gaia. And it's not the global warming thing. It's the poisoning of this world. But they don't want to talk about the poisoning of it. They much rather go, oh, the global warming. And it has, if you go to Diamond's channel, the Oppenheimer Project, you will see, he's a guy who looks at the long-term trends of weather. And we're going into, and our weather is run by the sun, and we're now in a deep solar minimum. And we have had very, very, very few sunspots. So the radiation going into the planet is getting weaker and weaker, and that's one reason why our polar geomagnetics is weakening up. And if it weakens to a certain point, we'll have a global shift. That's kind of what happens. And if you go doing cores and looking at, how did shells get on top of mountains? It's because the whole planet went wing, and the whole oceans went across the whole everything and left the crap that washed up there, and then everything went back to where it was. And that's where we're heading. When it's going to happen, who knows, right? But it's one of those trends that has happened many, many times. I mean, we had an asteroid hit the plate and killed 99% of everything, but it came back, right? It totally trashed every flora and fauna there was. And then for the morons to think that oil was made by the dinosaurs, no, sorry, it's not fossil fuels. Oil is the synovial fluid of the planet. We're not running out of this shit now. The more we take out of it, the more we imbalance the planet. Synovial fluid is a thing that is, you have 9 pulses in your body. It's not just your cardio pulse. You got 9 others, right? You got other, you know, pneumatic systems in your body, and so all of this is pretty much known. They knew it in the 19th century. They knew it all the way back to before Egypt. We are not at the top of the heap. We're at the bottom of the pit. The technology we have is like caveman stuff. They understood. Ben Franklin understood 0 point energy. That's what the Titan the Key was about. He was at what is the new kind of computing? Anyway, that kind of physics he understood, right? So did Newton, but because of the Catholic Church, he had to give them the clockwork kind of science, which kind of works on a micro macro kind of level, but it isn't what it is. There is no truth, really, guys. In religions who think they can tell you what God is. Come on. Never met Al Machin since the school. That's why I call him Teacher Bud. Yep. But Graham and I are somewhat of the same age, and we're both Dubliners, so we relate. We have had similar experiences of that time. Dr. Mengele. Well, Doc, I'll give you a short run up because 1 hour. So when it hits 1:11, I'm signing off, and I'll see you tonight. I'll try around 8 o'clock, but the bandwidth is like I did one at 3 in the morning because I woke up and didn't just turn on and go to sleep. If I wake up, hit the John, and then read a little, and then go back, I'll have really great dreams. So I went and I had great bandwidth, and so I'll try and do one at 8, and I'll try and do one later when I wake up, and we'll do a guided meditation. But the thing about it was the Hebrew nation, not the Jewish nation. The Jews were the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki were there was this. They were like ISIS, and before they became Jews, they were this pirate band of guys who were on the Silk Road, and they did exactly what ISIS did. They killed everyone, took all their stuff, would capture part of the land, and they became part of the Hegelian two-step. And anyway, the term Jew, because if you read the Torah, God told the Hebrew nation, "Don't have a country. You are meant to travel and take my word of love creation to everyone." And that's what the Hebrew did. And then they got Moses, who was not a nice guy, and so they were traveling. So they had no property, they had no stuff, they had bling, jewelry, and so when they hit Europe, the kings were having all these wars, and they needed cash, and so the thing that became the Rothschilds would lend money, bling, to the kings so they could, have war. So go see Shakespeare's, Merchant of Venice. And that'll put it into perspective, right? So, and that's Israel. Israel is a Zionist nation. So, the Khazarian mob became the Anunnaki, who became the Zionists. And those guys ran the death camps for the Nazis. So, and don't believe a word I say. Go look it up. I don't know anything. This is just a story. I'm the storyteller. Don't believe a word I say. You know, nothing I say is true, because the only thing that is real is love's co-creation. Everything else is an illusion, right? People get angry with that. I believe in this. How could you say it? Well, get real. You know. Well, I studied to be a rabbi. You know, I have the, but I was a Hebrew, right? Hebrew, right? Yes. Here was one about his little statement right there. Uh, Please explain to this Jew, because you're probably a Hebrew, right? Right. Because I don't hate anybody. I love everyone because I serve love's co-creation. I'm just telling you a story about all of that. So, go check it out. Don't believe a word I say. I'm not like these guys. And so that's why you need to go see a humanist report, because he laid it down very nicely about how people believe in this stuff, and they'll go nuts and troll and be nasty and all the above, right? Thanks for all those sweet little smiling guys. Uh, Zero. See, that's the cadre. Half the people who would. One reason why I only have a cadre of like 360, and it's really interesting. I'll get to 366, and then it'll go down to 352, and then 364, and down to someone's playing with, with my subscriber list. But I don't care because I accept everyone. And pretty much everyone who's the contrary, they have issues. And that's fine by me because those issues bring forth a perspective that needs to be shown. Doesn't need to be, the individual needs to be embraced with love. But they think what they want to talk about is fine. As long as, and I pretty much say this to everybody, you just can't spout off stuff. You've got to be you've got to bring that string out and tie it with a bow so we can talk about it, not just rant and rave. Now I'm the one guy who can do that because I don't rant and rave about any specific thing. I just tell you a story, right? And as I kind of do my stream of consciousness, it kind of brings you guys in, and you can spout up stuff here on the live chat that punctuates and flavors the conversation. And I go back and read it and go, yeah, okay, like rational lunatic. Well, that's that then. You're a bigot, man. Well, and one man's book burning is another man's sacred ceremony. The only thing I have faith in is love's co-creation. I embrace you all with my love, right? And I want you to express yourself. You can't do it with mean thoughts. So when the trolls were on tried to attack, I parried with love and said, so who are you? Where are you coming from? What's the story? And zero, you've been around long enough that energetically I got your story. But you might want to enlighten the rest of the cadre, So rational lunatic, I like that. That's a great channel. Time is short, right? And I keep saying, we got this window of opportunity because things are going to go down. That because the hidden hand, the powers that shouldn't be, are really stressed out because they realize they're losing control. So they'd rather burn the place down. Well, they've tried it many, many times, and it hasn't come. They tried to ignite the place in the 50s doing the hydrogen bomb test in the upper atmosphere. What do you think that was about? It got rid of the ozone, It spread toxic, nuclear isotopes all over the place. But it didn't do what they thought they were going to do. And, they tried to have biological, we've had so many biological exposures that we're still here, right? Yep, you're one of the compadres here. Yep. Yep. Graham, if you're leaving us, I hope to see you tonight. And the rest of you, I hope to see you tonight. We haven't hit about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I'm going to sign off and go do my errands. This is getting time to do that before it starts to rain. I hate driving in the rain. And so that's my message to you all, that I love you. And so let's say a little prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And in every day and every way we take the peace of the earth. And Father, put your hand on our shoulder. Expand our territory. Keep us safe from evil, so we will do no harm. And Hail Mary, full of grace, was with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now in the hour of death. Amen. And in every day and every way we take this peace and we make it stronger through love's co-creation. And love is not, it's asexual. It's Father Sky, Mother Earth, right? It's that connection of our breath, bringing in the prana into our lungs. Now, when this virus starts to kick off, everyone should meditate and bring that prana into their lungs. Also there is, birch bark, very good antiviral. Calendula, very good, right? There are a lot of things in the herbalist thing you can take. Vitamin B6, B12, vitamins, chewable vitamin C's, pills of vitamin C. You should just take them, right? And those herbs I mentioned first aren't prophylactics, where vitamin C and vitamin B are prophylactics. You can take a lot of them. And vitamin B6 will really be good for keeping your immune system to be able to push the stuff away, right? And that's why he's part of this. That's why I love you all. You all have your great graces and beauties, and I see them all. That's one of the things about being a shaman alchemist, is that you see in other wavelengths that most people can't see. Right? I can get a coffee and round it up. Okay, rational. Hope to see all you guys tonight. Right, so we're getting close to. It's past. See, I start rambling on, and we passed 11:11. So at 1:13:13, I'm going to say I'll see you later. We try around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then in the morning, 2 or 3 in the morning. Okay, depending on the bandwidth, how good I can get on the internet. So I came basically here to have breakfast and talk to you guys. I love you guys. And so we get to 1:13. Here we go, 1:13, and 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to go. See you, Graham. Love you guys. See you, Rational. Dr. Mengele. You're all beautiful people. I love you guys. Here we go, 1:13:13.